In this video, we are going to talk about how to configure a Nastran analysis that involves a modal analysis after preload. Now, this example is going to come from the MSC Nastran Demonstration Problems Manual, Implicit Nonlinear. This is going to be chapter 47. Now, what's good about this example, it's already been created for us, but what I want to pay close attention to is the case control section. Let me see if I can find it. Right, so that would be this section here. So I'm going to talk about how to configure this section. That's going to create that preload, and then it's going to perform that normal modes analysis after that preload. So how would we go about doing that? So if we look at our bulk data file, this is what it currently looks like. You'll notice that I effectively have no subcases. I only have SOL 400, maybe a title, and that's it. Again, the goal of this tutorial, if you will, is just to discuss how do we configure the subcases. So the tool we are going to be using today is the SOL 200 web app. If you want to follow along, there's actually a free version of this tool available. So if you go to the engineeringlab.com, here at the top right hand corner, there's a link, free trial pre-post web app. If you click that, you can download a free version of this tool. So let's go to the viewer web app and upload that bulk data file. So let's go and find it. That would be this example. And let's go ahead and open the pre-web app here. Let's go to case control section. So here, if we move this to the left, notice that we only have one command on, the title command. Let's go ahead and add 2 load cases, or actually 1. This is going to be subcase 1, and then we're going to have step 2 and 3. Here, I'll click on renumber subcase IDs. I like to personally renumber these in the following way. I like to use a 100 sequence series. So this is subcase 100. Then all the steps have a trailing number of 1 and 2. And then if I want to have more, I can do it like that. So 1, 2. This helps me identify, okay, this step is associated with subcase 100. Alternatively, if you wanted to, you could renumber the subcases and steps however you want. Okay, so the first step, that's going to be NL statics. So we'll go ahead and select NL statics, and let me move this to the side. And then for the second step, we're going to say perform a normal modes analysis. And now we need to do a few configurations here. For the statics analysis, we have to point to the NL parm. So we'll go ahead and turn on NL parm here. And then for the second step, we have to turn on the method command. So we're going to point to an eigenvalue entry in a moment. So let's go to configure. Here, let's go ahead and look for NL parm, or actually method and NL parm at the top. So we're good for now. Let's go ahead and point NL parm to the NL parm entry. For the method, let's go ahead and point it to the existing eigenvalue entry. And now we're done configuring the, the preload step and then the normal mode step. Let's go ahead and talk about output data or responses. For the first step and second step, we'll go ahead and turn on the displacement command. So for the first step, that's a statics analysis or nonlinear statics. So displacements are going to be displacement responses there. For the second step, it's a modes analysis. So the displacements are not displacements. They are going to be mode shapes or eigenvectors, if you will. So just keep that in mind. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about stress. So we'll look for stress. We'll say turn on stress for step 101s. So for the nonlinear statics analysis, we want to output the stress. Now for configure, I do not want the F06 file to be very big. So I'll go ahead and just turn on the plot command. So what we're saying here is output the results, but only to the H5 file or the OP2 file. Do not write out the displacements or stresses to the F06 file. Okay, let's go ahead and now let's maybe give some subtitles to these steps so we can differentiate them. So we'll go ahead and turn on subtitle, and we'll go to configure. Here, I think this table is getting a little complicated, so we'll go ahead and search for subtitle. We'll select the subtitle keyword, and we'll say a preload, and then modes. And then we'll see if this works. I didn't really practice it, but we'll see if it works. Subcase 103, we're going to configure a modes analysis for subcase 3. So this is going to be the modes analysis with no preload, so we can compare what the natural frequencies are before and after. So let's go to commands, and let's go and see what we want to turn on. So I think that's going to be the only thing we want to turn on. Oh, the method command, we need that. So let's go ahead and click on display selected, and then here we'll go to the method row. And then for subcase 103, we'll also mark the method on. We'll go to configure, and we'll say for subcase 103, use the same eigenvalue entry. So basically, use the same eigenvalue entry to extract the eigenvalues. Okay, so let's see what else there is to do. Now we get to assign the constraints, the boundary conditions, and the loads. So we go to case control commands, loads, and BCs, and we go to navigate. We'll click on SPC. Here, I believe we are going to, actually, I don't know what we defined. I believe here, let's take a step back. Let's take a look at the boundary conditions here. Let's go and turn off the element shading. So here we have SPC1 ID 4, and then where's my SPC ID 1? Oh, okay. Okay. So we want to include both of those in the analysis. So let's go back to pre. We'll say add all of those here for the preload and the modes, and then for subcase 3. So here we're taking those boundary conditions we saw a moment ago, and we're adding them to all of the steps in the subcases here. Now let's go back to navigate, and now let's go ahead and assign the load. So the load is going to go into the preload step, and then the load is going to go, well, the load is only going to be assigned to step 101. It's the only step that's going to be performing the statics analysis. And then one last thing, let's go ahead and look for that. Oh, I forgot to turn that on. So let's go and turn on the subtitle command, and let's look for subtitle, and this is modes, no preload. So it's just a subtitle to help me differentiate all the different data later on. Okay, let me look here and see if we're ready to go. Maybe we are, maybe we're not, but we only know this if we try and run this with Nastran. So let's go ahead and run this with Nastran. And we did get a UFM. Let's see if we can figure out what the UFM is. Error encountered in the main big bulk data section. Okay, so there is an issue with one of our pcomp ls entries. Let's go ahead and read this data. So first, let's go ahead and find the pcomp ls entry. Illegal data on bulk data entry. Okay, let's see here. Data field number 1 through 10, 3. Oh, okay, there's something weird. Oh, let me look here. Nope, that looks right. Okay, let me brainstorm this for a quick moment. Okay, I think while I was preparing for this tutorial, I may have made a mistake here with the C6 option, right? So let's go ahead and turn off this here. So let me describe what happened. This was on a moment ago. The C6 flag with these two options was on. That should not be on. So now let's go ahead and rerun this and see if it works. And then if it works, we should get no, okay, perfect. So it seems that did work. Let's do this. Let's go to the F06 file, and let's see if we get eigenvalues here. Oh, we did get some displacements here, or maybe not. Here, I'm only interested in the real eigenvalues. Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and copy this table. Let's move it here. So this is going to be the set of eigenvalues for the modes analysis with the preload. And then let's go ahead and look at the results from the second modes analysis with no preload. So let me make sure. Step 102. Oh wow, okay, I only get one. Oh, here it is. This is the one thing about the F06 file. Sometimes you don't know where you're at. Okay, so here let's summarize. Here at the top right, we are told that these modes analysis results are from subcase 1, step 102, which is the preloaded modes analysis. And then here, we get told these results are from subcase 103. This is the modes analysis with no preload. You notice something about the natural frequencies. You notice that the natural frequencies with the preload are higher than the modes analysis with no preload. So here we're looking at a first natural frequency of about 3,000 hertz. But with the preload, we're now getting a natural frequency of 5,000 hertz. So this is indication that we do have a preload happening in that modes analysis. So let's quickly summarize this tutorial. So what we went ahead and did was the following. We created one subcase and two steps. Step 101 was the preload that performed the nonlinear statics analysis. We created a second step that performed the modes analysis. So when you use steps, it uses the results from the previous step to perform the next analysis. Then we created another subcase. So this was a modes analysis with no preload. And then we found out that with the preload, the natural frequencies were higher than without the preload. Then we went ahead and did a few things in the command section. So let's go ahead and display what all of this is. The method command, that was a pointer to the eigenvalue entry. So basically, the eigenvalue entry tells Nastran how to extract the eigenvalues. The NLParm entry, I forget what that entry does again, but I think it specifies entries, or it specifies settings for the nonlinear statics analysis. So here, what we can do is we can turn on the description, and here we're told that NLParm defines a set of parameters for nonlinear static analysis iteration strategy. So that's what the NLParm entry did. Let's see what else we have here. So the analysis that define if we're doing a NL statics or modes analysis. We had subtitles to help us identify the different load cases or subcases. You notice that when you go to loads and boundary conditions, here at the top row, you get the same subtitle. We know step 101 is the preload step. Step 102 is the mode step. Subcase 103, that's the modes analysis with no preload. We had a title, displacements. We wanted both the statics displacements and the eigenvectors. We used the plot describer so we don't get a lot of data on the F06 file. We get the stress only for the statics analysis, and we use the plot only to output to the H5 or the OP2 file. Now, there's one thing I did not like during this. The F06 file was really big. Here, I'll show you what I mean. Let's go ahead and download the F06 file. If we look at the F06 file, you notice that it repeated the input file. All the hexahedral elements, all the nodes, and so on and so on, they're repeated here. Personally, I don't like that. What you can do is click on this button, reduce file size of F06. This is going to turn on echo equal none. Let's go ahead and rerun Nastran. And then this is going to output the F06 file with no repeat of the bulk data file. So if we look in the F06 file now, all those hexahedral elements and the mat1 entries, they're no longer here. They're absent. So this helps us keep the file size small for the F06 file. Okay, so there you have it. that is how you perform a modes analysis with the preload. Now, there was a lot more involved in this example. How do you define the boundary conditions, the loads, the materials? How do you define a pcomp ls entry? I'll leave that off for a future tutorial. Here, what I wanted to focus on was the case control section. You'll find that you have to use a very specific sequence of commands. Here are the specific sequences as follows: subcase, step 1, step 2. Step 1 does a statics analysis, and step 2 does a modes analysis. So as long as you follow that sequence, you'll be able to introduce preload into your modes analysis. So that's the end of this tutorial. A few final reminders. If you want to use the web apps that you saw today, you can visit theengineeringlab.com. At the top right hand corner, there's a button, a free trial of the pre-post web app. Click that link, fill out the form, and you'll get access to the web apps you saw today. And just in case you did have questions regarding today's tutorial, you can contact me at the email address, and I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. And as always, thank you for watching.